Good afternoon, everyone. Let's put our hands together once again for Mr. Puri. He's kept at his promise. He's taken early morning flight just to be here. Puri Saab, I was being told that you found it difficult to get a hotel room in your own hotel. Itna hotel mein why problem?
Well, I think it's good that all the sectors of the economy are recovering, and it's particularly nice that hotels are recovering because that's a sector that has faced the brunt of the pandemic over the last couple of years. So it's very
So ITC has no jugaad. ITC mein jugaad nahi hai.
Absolutely none.
Let's talk about the economy. At the beginning of the year, the world was looking very different. India was looking very different. The corporate cycle had started. The budget was a very growth-dominated budget. Oil prices were under control. There was no war in the world. Now looks like world has taken a 180-degree turn. Is it time to be careful and cautious?
Well, it's like this that no doubt that we are faced with uncertainties. There's no doubt about it. You see, the conflict is just one part of it. If you go back, the pandemic is, in the middle of the pandemic, the inflation came in. So there are many pieces of this uncertainty, right? However, I think if you look at the fundamentals, I think the growth story and the promise of India is very much intact. And I am particularly optimistic on the opportunities that are available in India. And therefore, I would say that we must continue to focus along the lines of our vision, our aspirations, execute our strategies, get more and more competitive. I think there is enough and more opportunities. I don't think there's any reason to hold back or get despondent. The ups and downs are there to stay. But if you've got the right strategies, the right competitiveness, I think one should be able to thrive in whatever type of new normal emerges.
The word inflation is something which historically has always brought growth rate downs. The business which you are in, inflation in a sense could really challenge the assumptions, margins and even demand. How do you think India and your business will deal with this inflationary cycle?
Well, Nikunj, first of all, I think inflation is one dimension and inflation is a concern. And with inflation, there is always a concern on volumes. And we saw this evident when Q3 results came out of various sectors and companies. But I think it would be useful to step back and look at the larger picture. What are the drivers of volume? What are the drivers of consumption? Inflation is just one parameter, but it's not the only parameter. It's about penetration. It's about per capita consumptions. And if we look at what is happening in the Indian economy, now, today we are the best performing economy. We have got out of the pandemic very resilient performance, good forex reserves, buoyancy in tax revenues. A lot of policy interventions have happened even during the pandemic, and a very growth-oriented budget. A budget that seeks to crowd in private investment through public expenditure. The whole vision of Gati Shakti. There is also the policy interventions as far as agriculture is concerned, which is to do with the formation of FPOs, Agri Infrastructure Fund, and so on and so forth. So all these tools and all these interventions will bring in efficiencies, jobs, better incomes. It is not that all this is going to happen overnight, but over time all of this will happen. And once this happens, I think consumption is bound to go up. And in fact, given the penetration levels and per capita consumption levels in India, the headroom to grow is enormous. So I would look at it a larger picture. Yes, short-term inflation is a concern, but then there is more to it. There is more opportunity.
If I speak to some of your peer companies, and they've been very vocal even on the India Economic Forum, that for the first time, they are feeling a double squeeze, which is that demand is down and margins are down. Up until now, FMCG companies have only had issues on margin because of inflation, but is demand down? Because that is what is evident. And just to, put context here for attendees, two-wheeler sales are down. Anything which has got to do with FMCG volume sales, they are also down. Is India or rural India going through a very massive crunch?
At the moment, yes, because of inflation. And if I was to look at it merely from a window of here and now, yes, I'm not denying the fact that there is a challenge. But I'm saying we have to take a little broader look at it. Enterprises and economies have not only to look at today, we have to look at tomorrow and day after. So that's what I'm saying. The opportunity in India is immense and structural drivers are well in place. Now, even if I look at it today, inflation is a challenge. But on account of the conflict, there are rising prices of agri commodities. On one side, it's creating inflation. On the other hand, it's going to pump in a lot more money into rural economy. So I do believe that with this crop, and this crop also is good this year, and higher realizations. Of course, input costs have also increased, but my sense is net is a positive. So in the later half of the year, and monsoon this year is also expected to be normal. In the later half of years, I think rural should be in a better position than what it is today.
I'll like to, sir, draw your attention to something which in a sense is now evident in terms of what is happening to greenflation. And why am I bringing it up is because there is an ESG element to it. A point which we've discussed and debated. While ESG is something ITC is also committed towards, environmental friendly, governance. But do you think that entire ESG policy needs to be relooked?
See, ESG is no doubt important. I think it is no more acceptable, or it was, in my view, never acceptable for a company to work with a narrow-minded focus on merely creating shareholder value. You have to look at stakeholder value. So it's a very important concept. When it came about, and it came about more than a decade and a half back, it was very clearly with the purpose to get enterprises, and enterprises are trustees of societal resources, to seek accountability from them on what they are doing to society, what they are doing to environment, and therefore what kind of risks it poses on their business, so that investors could seek accountability, investors could help correct things and move things around the right path. So that was the original idea. It was not about a binary idea of yes and no. And obviously when this perspective has to be put in place, it's important that we define, or we have very clear standards on what is ESG. Today that very basic definition is missing. And that's why we are also hearing about binary views, we are hearing about greenwashing and so on and so forth. So that I think needs to get corrected, and we need to have clarity and uniformity on what we are doing for ESG. But as an element, yes, I think ESG is important, and ESG must form the center of corporate strategy. It cannot be a bolt-on affair. Societal value creation has to come to the core of corporate strategy. And I believe when it is pursued, and I'm saying this with our own experience, when it is pursued with the right business model in a fashion that is synergistic with our businesses, you can actually create more competitiveness. You can create more gains. And there is no inherent contradiction between creating societal value and shareholder value. In fact, I can give you a couple of examples, our own examples. The ITC Hotels is the greenest luxury hotel chain in the world. The first 3 LEED Platinum certified net zero carbon hotels are part of the ITC chain. When we look at the cost side of it, we also find we have the lowest heat and lighting load. So it is bringing in efficiencies. If I look at my paper ball, the investments that we have made on a renewable fiber base also strengthens my competitiveness, also takes away the volatility of the external factors into my whole value chain, Besides, it makes my value chain more resilient. So there is a win-win when it is pursued in the right way. And I think that today is what is required. What is really required is what we call in ITC as responsible capitalism. It's not about compromising competitiveness. Be ready for extreme competitiveness, but do it with responsibility, fully realizing that we are, after all, trustees of societal resources.
Great point, sir. Let's look at your big businesses. While we all respect the fact that it's a silent period, so we won't get into specifics, but the idea is to understand the trend here. Tobacco, paper, hotel, FMCG, agri, exports. I don't think I've missed any. Yeah, all the major businesses. Are these major, and I understand that these businesses are in uptrend. So can I say that this is the best you've seen in all your various businesses? Like they say in Hindi, पांचों ungli घी में सर कढ़ाई में.
Well, I will draw attention to the results that were announced in Q3. And yes, they do indicate that the performance is robust as far as Q3 results are concerned.
Sir, mutual fund document says past performance is no guarantee of future returns.
Yeah, so you will have to ask me the second part of the question after silent period is over.
But has a new cycle started for ITC?
I'll just complete. So that's a data point. That's a data point. And what we have seen as far as the economy is concerned, progressively the economy has started to perform better, right? That's the way we should look at it. The economy is performing well. It's resilient. Nothing has got stuck. There has been no impediment in the economy. So that's where we stand per se. And second point I want to make is that, you see, it is not just Q3. Q3 was just one piece of data which was important from a perspective that certain businesses of ours, the traditional business, the hotels, the education stationery, were impacted during the pandemic. If we rewind and go back pre-pandemic, each one of our businesses was delivering comparatively superior performance. From FY17 to, let's say, FY20, just before the pandemic, EPS was up 47%, our ROCE was up by 11%. FMCG businesses in 4 years have scaled from 10 to 15,000. Margins have expanded by 640 basis points. So I'm just giving you a longer term perspective. It has nothing to do with a quarter. And I alluded to the quarter merely to give you the state of the economy, that all the businesses that were impacted had recovered well or were on good path to recovery. So from a fundamental perspective, I think we've always made the right investments to provide competitive superior performance, executed, and Q3 is just one exemplar, I would say.
So in this case, I would say that past performance may not be a guarantee of future return, but it is a guarantee of continuity. Let me put it this way. That's the right word I'm using, right?
Yes.
Continuity.
Ultimately, enterprises have to build strategies, make investments, not only for today. We have to look at tomorrow and day after. So it's a journey, and that's what we are in for.
If I say ITC is one of the best performing Nifty 50 stock this year, will that make you happy? Finally, everybody's realizing the value, intrinsic value of ITC.
Of course it does. Of course it does. But as I've always said, you see, the role of management is really to put your head down, focus on value creation, and based on that, it is for the market really to determine valuations. And that is what ITC is focused on, making the right investments to strengthen competitiveness of our businesses so that they flourish and thrive in future. It is about identifying new vectors of growth, and that's what we are trying to do in ITC Next, where we talk about new opportunities at the intersection of digital and sustainability with our enterprise strengths. And there are some that we have already identified and started to execute, like ITC Mars, sustainable packaging, the digital-enabled FMCG and food tech models. So all these are new opportunities. We are dialing up investments in digital. Just as an example, in the paper business that we spoke about recently, Industry 4.0 has given us a 230 basis points margin expansion in a couple of years. That's the kind of results it's giving. And that's the same with other businesses as well. There's a lot of investment on making ourselves future ready from a portfolio and innovation perspective. And it's about purposeful and agile innovation. So for example, during the pandemic, we put out 120 products into the market. And some of them were conceptualized and in the market in a few weeks. That was the speed. And this happened because of the investments that happened in R&D on making some future-ready platforms in place. The other bit that we are continuing to invest on is on supply chain. And when I say supply chain, on one hand, it's about bringing in efficiencies through simplifying and delayering. On the other hand, it's also to bring in agility and also to build up resilience in the supply chain. So all these are pieces, these are just examples, some pieces that are going to give us sustained value in future. And as we are growing as an organization, and that's a challenge I think every large organization faces, is that we must not get away from the consumer. We have to remain consumer-centric, and we have to be very agile and respond to his needs very fast. So we continue to reorganize ourselves in a fashion that brings in a lot more agility by creating product market teams that are fully empowered to take the decisions. For example, we have done that in foods business. And that gives us a lot of impact on the market.
So we've asked you this question and you've said the following answer, that never say never.
Sorry?
When I asked you this question, you've said the answer to my question on demerger was never say never. Would you still maintain that when it comes to demerger, never say never, but no immediate plans?
Yes and no.
It's a question which people are asking you every time.
Yeah. So my answer has always been yes and no. Okay. So it's like this, that how a business organizes itself must pass the first filter of what is required to make sustained value, to deliver sustained value. The second, on how we organize ourselves, is determined by the business context, business strategy, maturity of business, and competitive context. Right? So at one point of time, our paper business was a separate business. Hotels was a separate business. For a purpose, it was folded in. And they have scaled up and performed exceedingly well. Given the hotel business is today mature, where we've got a large footprint, we've got a significant market standing, and we are now pursuing an asset-right strategy. In 2019-20, in the annual report, we called out that we will, for that business, look at alternate structures. We kind of confirmed this last year, that we had put it a little on the back burner because of the pandemic. And as the industry recovers, we will take it forward. I'm just saying that nothing is cast in stone. We have to look at it in this context, and what is right for sustained value creation in that context, we have to take the decisions that are right in that context. And so therefore, hotels, we're going to do it ultimately. Yeah.
Ultimately, you will do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So your definition of the right, is it based on cycle? Is it based on scale? Or is it based on the market share you reach?
It is based on the business strategy, business maturity, and competitive context.
So for next 3 years, if I have to understand your outlook for ITC, are you excited, charged up, or optimistically cautious?
Well, I'm excited, I'm charged up, and I'm optimistic.
So what are you charged up about? What are you excited about? And what are you cautiously optimistic about?
Okay. So, as I said in the beginning, the opportunities in the Indian economy are immense. And that is where all the energy and excitement starts from. Second, when I look at how well my businesses are placed and the kind of steps we are taking to strengthening our businesses, we believe that we are on a good track and we are doing the right things to scale up and strengthen competitiveness. So that brings in a lot more promise for us. And the third is, we are able to identify, new vectors of growth in each of our businesses. And the opportunity for growth in each area is immense. Just let me give you some examples. If I look at agriculture, for example, I spoke about ITC Mars. I think that's going to open a totally new vector of growth. We believe that with what we have done and what we have established on sustainability and the models that we have piloted on value-added agriculture, I think there is a huge room to scale up. India has got the largest arable land in the world. We're just maybe 3% of the global exports. And just 7% of our produce is exported. Immense opportunities there. So our model of next generation agriculture, which will be powered by FPOs at the back end, digitally enabled, with an integrated input, output and advisory model, I think is going to give us huge amount of competitive advantage and therefore huge open new opportunities. If I look at my paperboard business, I think this space of sustainable packaging, because the world is clearly moving towards an area where plastics have to come down. So that's a huge opportunity for sustainable packaging. And that's an area where we have products in the market, we are developing some more, we are collaborating externally to develop some more solution. So interesting opportunities there. If I look at hotels, our asset right strategy is enabling us to grow much faster. The number of, the hotels that we are signing up now is at an accelerated pace. We refreshed the Welcome Hotel brand. We created two new brands, Story and Mementos, and all of them are receiving very encouraging traction. So all of these businesses offer immense opportunity. We have identified new vector, and that's where all the excitement and optimism comes in from.
ITC has had wonderful leaders over the years, and each leader had its own hallmark. Mr. Chuk took ITC tobacco business to a different national level. Mr. Deveshwar believed in diversification and expansion and de-risking the tobacco business. Every leader of ITC has had a mark, an era which they are remembered for. What will be Sanjiv Puri's era? I'm not saying you're retiring tomorrow, sir, but I'm just trying to understand that what will be your hallmark.
See, I would, let the stakeholders determine that. But from my own perspective, I think it's about really creating a value for all the stakeholders. It's about scaling up the businesses that we have and creating value for all the stakeholders there and doing it very efficiently. That's one part of the aspiration. The second is to make the enterprise future ready. Digital, talent, sustainability, technology are going to play even more important roles in the future. So how do we accelerate our journey in this area? That's the other focus I have. And the last piece is, of course, for me is about, and I already spoke about it earlier, is always making sure that the enterprise, despite the growth and despite the scale and despite the complexity in businesses, we must remain consumer-centric and agile.
So, Mr. Puri, final question. I'll not extend, or will not extend an appointment beyond that. And this is a very personal question. I love the Dal Bukhara. My request is, Bombay mein Bukhara kab khulega? We've been waiting and waiting for Dal Bukhara to come to Bombay. It never comes. Or Mumbai rather.
Well, Dal Bukhara is very much available in Mumbai.
But
it's
see,
we have, no, it's the same Dal Bukhara, it's the Dal Bukhara, it's the same recipe. So we have, ITC Hotels has iconic cuisines. And these iconic cuisines are there in various hotels. So as far as this whole concept of kebabs and dal bukhara is concerned, it is there in certain forms. It is there as bukhara, it is there in Peshawari, it is there in Royal Afghan, it is there in kebabs and curry. So there are different formats of it which are designed to cater to the requirements of the market. So in that context, we do have that in Mumbai very much. And of course, the Bukhara in India, specifically the Bukhara, the cuisine is available, but the Bukhara is only one.
Always the one, all
Always
right.
the one.
We've just come after lunch, but every time when it comes to dal bukhara and Peshawari, I feel like I'm hungry once again. So a full pack lunch, but dal bukhara makes at least me hungry every time. So Mr. Puri, thank you very much, and thank you for coming all the way from Kolkata and speaking to us and outlining where ITC is headed. Really, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Nikunj, for inviting me. And let me, as I close, compliment you for the choice of the topic, aspiration to action. I think with all the ideas that all of us have got, I think if we actually execute them, irrespective of external shocks, India will transform.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikunj.